Okay, so today we are looking at section 3.5, solving integers or equations that are involving integers. And again, the first thing that we're seeing with this, with our bullet points, we're basically just expanding on the first few times that we worked with this from section 1.7. We worked with a lot of this type of material in chapter 1 and chapter 2, but again, we're just bringing it back with everything that we've learned so far in chapter 3. And the big thing that we want and we like about this is this step-by-step process makes solving these things very, very mechanical. So you do not have to guess at what you're doing when you get an equation set up for yourself. If we're looking ahead a little bit to section 3.5, applications, story problems, the idea behind it is that we want to make sure that once we have everything set up as an equation, we know exactly what to do. There's no guessing, there's no having to second guess ourselves or question what we're doing next. We have it all ready to go. So that's what we're going to go through today. Our process, we have some examples. We'll go through those and go from there. So a suggested process for solving these equations. And again, I'm saying suggested because there are a lot of subtle differences that you could use when you're going through and solving these things. There's any number of other ways that some people go through and solve these, but I think this is the most straightforward one that I could possibly give you guys for this. So first and foremost, identify the variable you're solving for. And again, the goal, just like we did in the past, the goal is to isolate that variable to one side of the equation and have it be equal to a value. So x equals a number, y equals a number, n equals a number, something to that effect. That's our ultimate goal with doing all of this. So first and foremost, simplify both sides of the equation before you do any addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division to both sides. And again, when we are told to simplify, that's the buzzword for what you should be thinking after that, PEMDAS, order of operations. From here, we eliminate all variable terms on one side of the equation, if necessary. We're doing that by addition, subtraction. Then we isolate the variable term to one side by eliminating all constant terms on that side also, again by addition, subtraction. And once we've done that, then we're going to isolate the variable by multiplying or dividing by the value and sign attached to the variable. Again, a lot of this is basically the exact same thing that we've been doing from 1.7. And then last but not least, if you want to, you can check your final answer in the original equation that was given to you. If both sides are equal, then we have the correct answer. We're getting full points on the test or the quiz or whatever we're doing with that, or the homework even. So again, most, if not all of this is the exact same thing that we saw in section 1.7. So not a whole lot of this should be really, really new as we're going through these. So scrolling us down here, so we've got 10 examples that we can go through. I'm just going to start with number 1, and we might jump around to a couple of these other ones in here, depending on time and all of that. But I'm going to jump us over to our whiteboard, and we will start taking a look at solving some of these things from there. So, whiteboard. Okay. So our first examples. First one that we have 4 times the quantity, 22x minus 17x is equal to 3 times x minus 9, times the quantity of x minus 9. So again, following our process, first and foremost, simplify both sides of the equation. So I'm only looking at the left-hand side here, and I'm going to be following PEMDAS to do that. I look inside the parentheses. I can simplify inside there. So that's all I'm doing. I'm going to get 5x. I can simplify that further. 4 times 5, it's going to give me 20, and the x is still there. I cannot do anything else to that side, so I'm just going to be done with it and leave it as it is. So I just simplified that. On the right-hand side, we're using PEMDAS again. I can't do anything inside the parentheses, no exponents, but I can multiply this 3 through to everything. So I get 3 times x, it's going to give me 3x. I have 3 times negative 9, That's going to give me negative 27. I can't reduce that or simplify that down any further, so I'm done there. But I'm just going to bring it down one last step so I have everything in line. And now from here, we've simplified both sides of the equation. We know we're solving for x, so fantastic. Eliminate all variable terms on one side of the equation. So I have x's over here, I have x's over here. I want to get rid of all the x's on one side. Doesn't matter which one we choose. I'm going to choose to get rid of this 3x because it's the lower value. So I'm subtracting 3x from both sides. Okay, 17x is equal to negative 27. And now I have all my variable terms on one side, which is good. Our next step would be to isolate the variable term on one side by eliminating all constant terms on that same side. So I have all of my x's over here. There are no constant terms on that side, so I can skip step, I can skip step 4 in the process. And now I can go to step 5, isolate the variable by multiplying or dividing by the value and sign attached to that variable. So I do not want 17x, I just want x. So to undo multiplication, I use division. Cancels on the left-hand side. We get x is equal to negative 27 over 17. And we cannot reduce this fraction down any further. 17 is a prime number, and it doesn't go into 27, so we are done. Make the 7 a bit better. There we go. Okay. So looking ahead to a couple of other examples that we have, I'm going to jump us to example 3, but again, referencing that same grouping of examples that we have there. I'm just jumping around to ones I think are going to have a few more steps involved, so it's better display for what we're going to be seeing on the homework or the test. X plus 3, okay. All right, I'm going to take a quick second, make sure I have everything written down correctly, and we do. Okay. So again, our first step in the process, I want to identify what I'm solving for. I'm solving for x. Now I am simplifying both sides of the equation down. I look at the left-hand side of the equation first. Can I simplify 3x plus 2? And I can't. I can't add those things together. They are not like terms. So the left side is done. I'm looking at the right side then. And could I simplify that down any further? And I can. I have multiplication going on. That's negative sign. It's going to distribute through to everything inside. And then I have addition, subtraction. I can combine like terms with the x's. I have negative 5x minus 7x, which means I'm going to go more negative. It's going to be a negative 12x. Nothing is combining with that negative 3, that minus 3 at the end, which is fine. So it's just along for the ride. I cannot simplify the right-hand side down any further, which is good. All I'm going to do is just rewrite the left-hand side just to keep it caught up. So now I have simplified both sides of the equation. Now I am trying to isolate, or eliminate, I should say, eliminate all variable terms on one side of the equation. So again, I have an x over here, and I have an x over here. I'm going to get rid of the lower value, which in this case is the minus 12. It's a smaller value of the two. So to get rid of that minus 12x, I am going to add 12x to both sides. On the right-hand side, it cancels out. I'm left with just negative 3 over there. On the left-hand side, I have 3x plus 12x. It's going to give me 15x plus 2. And now I want to get rid of all other constant terms that are on the same side as my variable. So I have this plus 2 over here. I'm going to get rid of that plus 2 by subtracting 2 from both sides. gives me 15x is equal to -5. -3 minus 2, we're going more negative, gives us -5. And then isolate the variable by multiplying or dividing by the value and sign attached to the variable. So I do not want 15x, so I divide, oops, there we go. So I'm going to divide both sides by 15. 15 is attached through multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm getting x is equal to -5/15. And now we always, always, always need to check and make sure, can I reduce this fraction down? Either you can do it in your head, you can use a calculator to help out with that, whatever works for you, but you have to fully reduce this thing down. And this does reduce. Numerator and the denominator both have a common factor of 5, which means each of them can be basically reduced down or divided by 5 there. And I can't do anything else with this problem or reduce it down any further. So I have my final answer, -1/3. Okay. And let's take a look at, yeah, number 4 is a good one. It's got a lot going on there. So look at number 4. Again, we're getting to some of these where now we're going to have a lot more setup steps with these things, which is fine. But again, make sure you are keeping track of where you're at in the problem, what you are doing, what your next step is going to be. Be very, very methodical with it. A lot of people in this section, they do quite well in the homework. They get the process nailed down, and then as soon as it comes time to do the test, they speed through it. They aren't as diligent about what steps they're taking and all of that, and then suddenly they lose a lot of points with it, which we don't want to have happen. Okay, so we're identifying the variable that we are solving for. We're solving for w. Okay, so we got that taken care of for us. Now we want to simplify both sides of the equation before we do any kind of addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division back and forth. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to just focus on that for now. So I'm going to simplify that first. I can't do anything inside the parentheses. I don't have any exponents. I do have multiplication, though. I have this -3 that can go through to each term inside that parentheses there. So I'm going to have 9w minus 7 minus 30 plus 3w. Make this a bit nicer here. And now I'm combining like terms. I have 9w plus 3w. It's going to give me 12w. -7 minus 30. It's going to be -37. And I can't combine any other like terms over there, so that side is done. Simplify the right-hand side. It's -5 distributing through. And then combine like terms. On that side, I have -20w plus 1w. It's going to be -19w minus 20. And now from here, we can just follow the process that we've done in the past. We're done with these previous problems. So it's going to cancel on the right-hand side after I've added that to both sides. The left-hand side, we should be getting, it's going to be 31. Now we're going to get rid of that -37 by adding, whoops, blue, by adding 37 to both sides. 31 is all that's left over, or 31w, it's all that's left over on the left-hand side. Right-hand side, we get a -17. And then divide both sides by 31. Good Lord, come on. There we go. cancels on the left-hand side. We only have a w remaining. On the opposite side, we have negative 17 over 31. We cannot reduce that fraction down any further. We are done. Okay. Now, before we go any further with this, I am going to step out here for a quick minute, use the restroom. Again, I apologize for the inconvenience here, but I will pause the recording, and I should be back here shortly. We'll go through one or two more examples with this. Okay, so continuing, a couple more here. Let's look at number 6. It's got a couple steps, but I don't think it's as long as some of these other ones. So number 6 in that list of examples that we have, come on, there it's writing. Plus 8, and then minus 2 at the end there. Okay, making sure we got everything written down correctly. And yeah, okay, we're good there. Okay, so again, just like we've done with our previous examples, we're solving for n. So I want to eventually get n all by itself on one side of the equation. It's the ultimate goal with this. First and foremost, I need to simplify both sides of the equation down if I possibly can. So again, I'm just going to look at the left side here first, and I'm just simplifying, so just using PEMDAS. I can't do anything inside the parentheses. I have no exponents. I have multiplication happening now. So negative 8 is going to distribute through. It's going to be a negative 16n minus 8. I cannot simplify that down any further, so I'm just going to leave that as it is. On the right-hand side, I'm just simplifying that as well. So I have 2 that can distribute through to both terms inside the parentheses. That's going to give me a negative 18n plus 16 minus 2. So again, just following PEMDAS with this. I have some addition subtraction going on right here at the very end. So I can combine those together. I'm just going to be, again, combining like terms. So negative 16 minus 2, that's going to give us a positive 14. And I cannot simplify the right-hand side down any further, so I'm done over there. I'm just going to bring the left side down so everything is in line with each other, or in line with one another. And now from here, now we start adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing things to both sides of the equation. I want to get all of the variable terms to one side. I've got n's over here and n's over here. I'm going to get rid of the smaller, the lower value, which is going to be negative 18 here. So I get rid of that by adding 18n to both sides. I should also note as we're going through these, I've seen it show up fairly regularly that people will say, I'm just going to subtract, I'm going to add 18 to both sides. I'm not going to add 18n to both sides. We have to make sure we include that n in there, because otherwise we're just adding constants, and that doesn't necessarily cancel anything out that we're working with. Be very, very clear, I'm subtracting or I'm adding 18n to both sides, working with the variables there. So now we have 2n minus 8 on the left-hand side. I want to isolate the variable term on one side by eliminating all the constant terms on that side as well. So I want to get rid of this negative 8 that's in there, this minus 8. It is attached to the 2n through subtraction. I undo subtraction with addition. So I'm adding 8 to both sides. Cancels out over here. I'm getting 2n left over on the left side and 22 on the right side. I do not want 2n, I just want 1n. So I'm dividing both sides by 2. Oops, there we go. And then 22 divided by 2, that's going to be 11. I can't do anything else from there, so I am done. Okay. So again, I can go through more examples of this because we've got 10 total. But again, the main core of everything that we're doing here is just doing that same process over and over and over again. And again, a lot of people, when they're going through this, the biggest things that mess people up is they do not do the simplification steps. They just automatically start to add, subtract, multiply, and divide things to both sides of the equation. And I would highly recommend you go through just a couple lines of work to make that happen for yourself. It's a lot easier to look at something that we have right here and add, subtract, multiply, and divide to both sides than it does starting from here. I think problem 4 is a great example of this. If you're looking from this step to add, subtract, multiply, and divide things to both sides of the equation, you're going to have a really tough time doing that. It's significantly easier to do so when we get to this step here, where we have simplified the left side down to being a constant and a variable, and we simplified the right side down just to be a constant and variable. So do those setup steps for yourself. Make life easier for when you are going to be adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing things to both sides of the equation. It's much easier to work with this than it would be for this. So just a couple things that I've noticed when I've gone through and seen people go through the homework as a generality of what we should be doing. And again, as you're going through and working with the stuff on the homework, I have no problem with, and I would expect you guys to be going back and taking a look at the lecture notes that I have for you guys. I put those up there and I give you guys that process so you can use it, and I highly recommend doing so. Nothing wrong with that. If you are learning it, you want to get that process down for yourself, reference that as your guide as you're going through it on the homework. Or if you're looking in the textbook examples, again, the textbook problems are not assigned, but they're great additional practice. If you're looking at the textbook problems, use the exact same step-by-step process. That's why I gave it to you guys. I want you to use it. Okay. So other than potentially going through more examples of the exact same thing, this is everything that we have for today. I am going to end the recording there, and I'll see if there's any questions, and then we'll go through the test a little bit. We'll talk about the test a little bit as well. I'll stop the recording.